like when I was a kid, I started taking golf lessons when I was like 12 or something, solely because of Tiger. Like,
oh, it really shows, Adam. It really shows that you start taking golf lessons when
I took
you're
about
12.
4 and then I gave up. Hello and welcome to the first ever Establish the Run golf show. My name is Adam Levitan. As always on the show, I'll be joined by the man you know and love. Well, the husband of the woman you know and love, Ashley Jennings. That is Peter Jennings, of course, CSU Ram 88. Peter, good morning.
Morning, Adam. You're looking nice. I like the green shirt. How excited are you for the Masters?
These are my Masters colors. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I've actually been a closet golf junkie for a while now. Actually, ever since I was working with Rufus on the betting stuff, I started like watching it and really getting into it. And now, like, I really follow like every player, and I actually really got into golf a lot over the last few years. So credit to Rufus for that. Anyways, we're also joined by Rufus Peabody. You know him from the podcast we did last week. I hope you all listened to that. I think you hopefully got a lot of good stuff from that. Rufus, I know it's a crazy week with Bet Bash and Masters. How you holding up?
Tired, but I'm here.
You're looking beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
On today's show, we are going to talk through all the stories around the Masters. There's a lot to get to. I think we should jump right into it with Tiger Woods stuff. This is, I just got to get it off my chest on Tiger, man. Like, I think Tiger's fine. I have no problem with Tiger. The way the media covers Tiger like a heroic figure makes me sick. I mean, what a comeback he made from having sex with women in Las Vegas. What a comeback he made from getting wasted and driving his car into a tree. Oh, what a hero. He could have killed someone when he was driving like that. Anyways, I know everybody loves Tiger. I'm sure that's inflated. Go ahead, Rufus. I'm sure it's inflated.
Oh, I was going to say, like, they all owe Tiger an enormous debt of gratitude because there's all this money in the game due to Tiger.
True. And honestly, like when I was a kid, I started taking golf lessons when I was like 12 or something, solely because of Tiger. Like,
oh, it really shows, Adam. It really shows that you start taking golf lessons when
I took
you're
about
12.
4 and then I gave up. But yeah, I mean, obviously Tiger is great for the game. I like watching Tiger. He's one of the best athletes ever, pretty clearly. And so I have all this. I just hate the way it's covered. But I think the way that it's covered kind of inflates his lines and his market. So Rufus, why don't you go ahead on where you're at with Tiger and what you think of what the market thinks of Tiger?
Well, first off, the outright market. I mean, Tiger's the most bet golfer basically at every book by a mile, and books were hanging 40 to 1, 60 to 1, which is ridiculous. But they're doing that because they know people are going to bet him, and it's a one-way market. Circa actually has a two-way market, so you can lay 1 to 100 against Tiger winning, but which I think is a fantastic bet. But you are certainly having to lay a lot of money there. So it's not a huge edge, just simply because, I mean, it's a huge edge, but it isn't a huge edge in terms of percentage wise. Just because, even if it was guaranteed to win, it's going to be like a 1% edge.
Sure.
In terms of forecasting him though, like, I mean, it's complete. I mean, he's a superhuman. And it's he's very hard to forecast. Like, what data do we have? He hasn't played competitive golf since was it December of 2020? I think maybe even before that. And so, any model, like my model is basically saying, oh, this guy hasn't played in 500 days. He should get downgraded a bunch. You can't really go off of just what he was at the time, but my model wasn't built to handle guys with 500-day layoffs. So I'm low on him. But again, I wouldn't necessarily trust my number on him that much just because there's not a lot to go off of.
Yeah. I think like 1900 to 1 sounds really wild to me. I think that like he's drawing almost dead to win, and I get that 1900 to 1 is almost dead to win, but like when you said 1900, I thought you meant 190 to 1. And a lot of people are going to say, oh God, he has his course history here, blah, blah, blah. It's just really hard when a guy hasn't played, and we don't even know if he can walk the course like fully. Like I could see him withdrawing at some point, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
Along those lines, I think one thing that's not being talked about that I imagine is going to be impactful, and I wonder how Tiger's going to manage it. There's been multiple issues with pain pills for him. I mean, that was his first accident was pain pills, and with his back injury, all the injuries he's really had, that was something that really impacted him. And I think, given the circumstance now, I imagine he's going to have to do something to try to mitigate the pain as he tries to walk this course, which is, arguably the hilliest course that you could walk. Obviously, he thinks he has a chance to compete. He wouldn't be out here if he didn't think he could compete. But I think the additional element of what he's going to have to do to manage the pain is not optimal for competitive golf. So I'm relatively bearish on Tiger. I'm rooting for Tiger. It's the same thing. 2019, like basically the worst outcome for me financially was Tiger Woods winning, and I was still like really excited to watch him win.
Yeah,
which is weird. That shows how great Tiger is. Like everyone's like, oh, it's a great story when this happens. Like I'm rooting with my wallet 99.9% of the time, and I think Tiger's maybe the one exception. So I'm sure that'll be the case this week. It'd be a great story. It'd be great for golf. It'd be great for golf markets. It'd be great for the industry if Tiger's really competitive. But it's a tall order to succeed there.
You can see on our projections here, which I brought up. Of course, these are powered by Rufus, and Tiger's 8,500 on DraftKings, which is just an outrageous price tag. I mean, he's right around Sam Burns, Neiman, Finau, Hatton. 8,500 is pretty steep on DraftKings. We think that before we bumped his ownership, and obviously we have an algorithm running to project ownership, we bumped Tiger just because he's Tiger. I think if it was an algorithm based solely and at higher stakes, you'll see Tiger at like 1 or 2%. In the large field Millie Maker type stuff, you'll see Tiger up at 8%. I mean, Tiger's just an easy full fade for me in DFS.
He'll be low owned in the high stakes. I mean,
high stakes he'll be like unowned. Yeah,
he was low owned in high stakes in 2019. I mean, that's just the nature of it. But in the cheaper stuff, he'll be popular
for sure. I'm curious, Rufus, if you've looked at all with people who play with Tiger. There's this narrative out there that if you play with Tiger, you're overwhelmed by the crowd. It's too much pressure. The people playing with Tiger Thursday, Friday are Neiman, who I actually think, Neiman's really young. I think he's like 23 or something like that. And obviously Louis Oosthuizen, I wouldn't expect to be phased. But Neiman, 23, do you have any concerns about that on Joaquin Neiman?
First off, I thought you were going to be talking about Fred Couples and Fred playing with him. By the way, Tiger's going to say all the right things in the press conferences, and everybody's going to say he looks good. It doesn't mean anything until you get a competitive round. But I don't have any concern with that. No, I mean, there's going to be more attention on their shots. You're not going to be able to take a bad drop or anything like that. So maybe it would matter more if he was playing with Patrick Reed. But I think that. So I have looked into quantifying the effect of playing with particular golfers, and there was a bit of a Tiger effect earlier on. But I think things have changed in the game of golf now from like 2003, 2004. And just the level of attention and scrutiny these guys get on a week-to-week basis, on a shot-by-shot basis. And so there's just a lot more attention on the sport of golf than there used to be. And these players these are both guys that have won. I mean, Oosthuizen has had a ton of pressure on him over the course of his career. So I see it as just a narrative.
Yeah. Real quick, just to hop in, then shout out to the Masters. You can watch every shot of every player, which is the absolute nuts. For those of you sweating DFS or betting in golf, updating the PGA Tour app is like in the shot tracker is one of the worst experiences. Now we get the best experience where you get every shot, you can watch every video. So anyone trying to take a bad drop will be scrutinized. But on Neiman, the other narrative thing, which probably doesn't matter at all, but he did win Tiger's tournament at Riviera. I got to spend a little time with him after. Who knows? Yeah. Sure, he's confident around him. I mean, I can't imagine that matters at all.
Yeah, I think Neiman is a pretty good play at 8,200. I think Oosthuizen is at 8,900 on DraftKings is a little bit expensive, but I still think Louis will play well. And I was looking at Louis and some of the tier stuff on DraftKings as well. He's just a little expensive at 8,900, I think.
Well, everybody loves how he plays in majors.
Yeah,
I mean, look what he did last year.
And we're going to get to that more when we get to the Koepka stuff. I'm curious what you think about that. I do want to move into the weather, though. I know that weather is a big part of projecting golf. We talked a little bit about it on the podcast. Rufus, what do you think about the weather and any advantage for late wave, early wave, or anything else with weather for this week?
I need to actually get my little weather sheet in front of me. So I think it isn't just about wave. I think that's, given that you have players only going off of 1 tee instead of 1 and 10, you're going to have you have a good bit of disparity in tee times within waves. So for example, John Rahm's teeing off just before 10:30. Rory McIlroy's teeing off after 10:30. on Friday. They're the early Friday wave, whereas you have other guys teeing off before 9 o'clock, like Justin Rose. And so, Friday with the wind is supposed to really come up. I mean, I have Rose basically is gaining almost more than 0.2 of a stroke relative to Rahm due to weather there, even though they're in the same wave. So I think it looks like the guys that go really early on Friday are going to have more of an advantage, whereas guys who are late in the early Friday wave are still going to be facing the brunt of the wind. But again, right now we still have 18 hours to go until the tournament starts. So or a little more than that. The weather can and will change. The weather forecast can and will change. So it's something that I keep on monitoring. But in terms of stack, I mean, I would say not just stack within a tee time wave, but if you can stack guys that are within a wave of that wave.
Yeah. I noticed that when you reran the projections last night, that Justin Rose got a pretty sizable bump, and he's pretty cheap. But we'll continue to monitor the weather and adjust the projections as needed there. But just know that all that stuff is indeed baked into projection. In other words, like I said, Justin Rose's projection is moving based on having a good side of the weather. Peter, I'm curious how much you try to correlate lineups with weather when you're building teams, and do we think at all a wet track at the Masters can be bad for long hitters? In other words, maybe they can't reach the par fives. I don't think it's going to be that wet that we should be too worried about that. But anything else for you on weather, Peter?
I'd actually argue it's the opposite. A wet track would generally be much better for longer hitters. You can stick greens easier, and the shorter players who are more accurate are going to get less roll, and the clubs that they're going to have to hit get much longer. So I think and then broadly, longer hitters are less accurate, right? The dream scenario is the guys who hit it long and straight, like Jon Rahm. But I think it's really important to think about stacking guys together. It certainly is something that people are doing a lot more of. There can be a big advantage. We saw this in the Players, where there's a narrative around the wave or not a narrative, but there's a consensus that one wave is better than the other. And if there's some volatility, there can be an immense opportunity. There used to be, 4 or 5 years ago, I think the best example might have been 15 or 16 for the Open Championship, when Stenson and Mickelson got that huge edge. And I just completely removed the other side of the wave in that example. But the markets have gotten a lot more efficient. DFS guys have, thought about this stuff a lot. So to me, the real opportunity, I think Rufus brought up a good one, stack not just the waves, but waves within waves. And, if there's a consensus and there looks like there might be a little bit of volatility in how it breaks down, going the opposite way can make sense. And I don't know if that's
Peter, to your point with that, I mean, there's supposed to be thunderstorms overnight. I mean, I still see 34% chance of isolated thunderstorms Thursday morning. If tee times get moved, if that delays play in some way, then suddenly all bets are off, and this great tee time stack you had with this wave that looked to be advantaged may not be. So I think that there's definitely I wouldn't do it in a cash game or anything like that, but in sort of in a GPP, with one of the big GPPs, a lot of entries. I mean, it could certainly make sense to kind of go against the grain there and just take a flyer on randomness.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna get into that randomness part of golf. I think it's a little bit different than some of the guys who've been playing NFL and NBA. I do want to make a quick point on the Masters in terms of the structure of how it's set up. Like most weeks in golf, the field is 144 players, roughly top 60 in ties, make the cut, and almost everybody is a threat to make it the cut. Masters is so unique. There's only 90 players in the field, top 50 plus ties make the cut. So a huge, way more percentage of the field is making the cut. And you have all these guys that are drawing dead. Sandy Lyle, Larry Mize, Jose Maria Olazabal, Mike Weir. So honestly, it's really hard to miss the cut at the Masters. You can see that reflected in Rufus's odds to make the cut percentages on the right side here. I mean, it's really hard to miss the cut. And so my take for this on DFS is that you can take more chances on guys because there's so much more likely to make the cut. Some of the cheap guys in a normal week on DraftKings might only be 45% to make the cut. Cheap guys this week, I mean, you can get guys who are 60, 70, 80% to make the cut that are really cheap. So I don't know, Peter, how do you think the Masters structure changes anything for DFS?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head.